Is Microsoft giving up on Xbox consoles? What's up, y'all? I'm Ray, and this is my channel, Xbox Ready, where we talk everything going on in the world of Xbox. I talk Xbox news, rumors, games, pretty much anything I want to talk about as long as it's related to Xbox in some way. And today we're going to be talking about a pretty surprising rumor that my buddy Jimmy sent my way this morning. Tom Warren, a reporter over at The Verge, apparently got a tip from someone that suggested Microsoft is going to stop marketing Xbox consoles in certain regions like Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. And because of that, they are going to allocate less console stock to those regions. Now, as of right now, this is a rumor, and by his own admission, Tom Warren said he wasn't able to fully verify the tip that he got. He's currently seeking more information about the subject. But, I mean, it's not the craziest rumor that we've heard. We know that Xbox Series X and S sales are kind of struggling right now. They're down a pretty good chunk, even compared to Xbox One consoles at the same point in that generation. We've been hearing rumors that retailers across Europe don't even stock Xbox games. In terms of sales, Xbox exclusive Hellblade 2 struggled in the European market. So when you look at the whole picture, it's not the craziest tip that we've heard. And if it is true, and they're gonna stop marketing, they're gonna stop pushing console sales in that region, I mean, Xbox does a lot of stuff that I don't like or I disagree with, but even when I don't necessarily agree with the moves that they're making, I can kind of take a step back and see why they made those moves. Like when Redfall came out and everyone was like, this is terrible, why is it so bad, blah, 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 blah. As time went on, I can kind of see the series of events that led to the problems that Redfall had and the eventual closure of Arcane Austin. Speaking of, when they closed down Tango Gameworks, I didn't like that. I really liked that studio, but taking a step back, I was like, okay, I mean, a lot of their games aren't really big sellers. I think they gave them a fair shot with Hi-Fi Rush, and it wasn't really pushing the needle either way in terms of finances and sales. So even though I really don't like it, I could sort of see from a business perspective why they shut down that studio. But stopping marketing, stop trying to sell consoles in these regions, it's not making sense to me. I mean, if you want to sell more consoles, I mean, you would think that you would try to up your game in terms of marketing. People are pointing out that Xbox marketing is pretty much already non-existent over in Europe, so maybe this won't be that big of a change from what's currently going on, but still, I think it's weird. We've seen that if Xbox really wants to expand their presence in a market or a region, they will try. At the beginning of this generation, they made a conscious decision, Microsoft did. They were like, you know what, we're gonna grow our presence in Japan. We're gonna do everything we can to build up our rep in Japan. We struggled in that market in the past. That's all in the past. We're gonna leave that behind us because this generation, we're going hard and we're gonna try to get a foothold in one of the biggest video game markets in the world. If this is true, this is not helping the allegations that Xbox is gonna abandon consoles. And we know that they're not going to. Sarah Bond, Phil Spencer, they've committed on camera to bringing us at least another generation of Xbox consoles. And you would think that if you're gonna go and invest the money and the time in developing hardware, that you would also try to market it. As I always say, I'm just a dude with a YouTube channel and a decent camera, decent microphone. But this, again, if it is true, if they're planning to go through with this is something that worries me as an Xbox fan. This video is brought to you by PDS Debt. Debt is such a weird thing because it's something that so many people deal with or have dealt with in the past. But yet people don't really like to talk about it because it's embarrassing, it has certain implications. Like my mom recently, who has always been financially well off and from my perspective very well put together, dropped the bomb on me the other day and was like, yeah, in my 30s I filed for bankruptcy. I was like, what? If you're watching this and you're struggling with debt, if you're making payments every month on your loans, on your credit cards, and they're just not going down, PDS Debt is here to help you out. If you have $10,000 in debt, whether it's through personal loans, credit cards, medical debt, you qualify even if you have bad credit. PDS Debt can find the best option for you, consolidate your loan so you can pay off that debt in a fraction of the time. So again, if you need help and you're not quite sure who to turn to, go on over to pdsdebt.com/xboxready to get your free debt analysis. It only takes like 30 seconds. Thanks again to PDS Debt for sponsoring this video. The theory, according to this tip, according to Tom Warren, is that Microsoft is scaling back their efforts in these markets because, well, they're not doing well in terms of hardware sales in the first place. But it's not like hardware sales are particularly doing well in any market right now. Obviously, the biggest Xbox market in terms of consoles is the United States, but they're still getting outsold pretty handily by the PS5. So if they continue to struggle, they're not pushing as many units as they want to. What's to stop the same situation from playing out in their bigger markets like the UK and the US? Pulling back on marketing, pulling back on console stock. On the other end, maybe this means that they're just kind of scaling back specifically on the Series X and S. I don't know why they do that, because they released like 2 new SKUs of their freaking consoles over the past 2 years, the Carbon Black Series S, the Digital X, and the special edition Galaxy Black freaking console that they just dropped at the showcase. But maybe they're just scaling back on the Series X and S with the intention that they're gonna focus entirely on whatever they're cooking up for this next generation of hardware, whether it's like this PC Xbox hybrid, whether it's the Xbox handheld, whether it's expanding Xbox cloud gaming to other streaming devices like we just saw with Amazon Fire TV. The other part of this is that they're apparently going to plan on focusing solely on cloud gaming, PC, Xbox controllers, and Xbox Game Pass. That also worries me too, because if they see success in pushing those services and they're like, okay, we're doing way better getting people to subscribe to Game Pass and use cloud gaming in these regions, and we're making more money with less overhead, what's to stop them from doing that in the other markets? Xbox is being a little sneaky right now. They're kind of doing these tests right under our nose to see if they can get away with not having hardware. The most successful of those tests being Sea of Thieves. They were like, okay, let's take these 4 games, Sea of Thieves, Grounded, Pentiment, Hi-Fi Rush, port them to other platforms, see how they do, see if we can make a little bit more money off of them. Some of them didn't really do too well. Hi-Fi Rush, Pentiment, sure, that's to be expected. Grounded doing pretty well. It charted in the top-selling games on PlayStation for a couple of weeks now. I don't know what the status of it is right now, but Sea of Thieves have been having a field day, a complete resurgence, especially over on PlayStation. It's still one of the most top bought and played games on that platform. It's a small sample size, it's only 1 game, sure, but I am worried that it is signaling to Microsoft and Xbox that this whole multi-platform thing is the way to go, and that these exclusives that we're so excited for coming up, like Gears of War, like Fable, aren't going to be exclusives at all, and if there is no exclusives, what is the point of having an Xbox console? But I gotta pull myself back a little bit. These are just rumors at the moment. I might be bugging out over nothing. I mean, that happens all the time. We've been hearing a lot over the past couple of years that, you know, Xbox doesn't really care about console sales because they have different metrics for success. Game Pass growth, the engagement of certain games in the Game Pass library, how many total people play a certain Xbox games, no matter what the platform is. For example, just a couple of weeks ago, people were saying, oh, Hellblade 2, it didn't sell very well in Europe. That means Xbox is pissed. They're gonna shut down Ninja Theory. Xbox screwed up again. But we got some data on how it did over here in the US, and it's doing a little better. Number 37 overall when you take into account PC and Xbox, number 21 on just Xbox. It's number 11 in terms of engagement when it comes to the Game Pass library, right ahead of Fallout 76, which is a pretty big game. But you gotta wonder, with Microsoft expecting a return on their almost $70 billion investment into Activision Blizzard, how long is stuff like that gonna fly? How much are they going to accept that going forward? I'll wrap up with a couple of PSAs here. Number 1, we're still getting spammed to death in our Xbox messages. Yes, I saw another article about it. People have been reaching out to me being like, Ray, this is getting worse. Like, not only Temu, but all of these other scams that are trying to come at us in our Xbox messages. And to be honest, y'all, I don't really know what to do about it. I've been reporting the messages I've been receiving, but then, I mean, they're all automated, so even if they get banned, these people just make another one and they get right back to it. Does kind of irk me a little bit because Xbox, well, they will take swift and fierce decisive action when it comes to banning accounts, preventing people from typing in the words free company in that freaking Final Fantasy game, being super ruthless to people who accidentally upload clips of certain Baldur's Gate 3 scenes. But it seems that they're dragging their feet on preventing this message spam, which is not only affecting me, but a good chunk of Xbox fans. I'd also like to address something else. Last week, I did a video with my buddy Jimmy Champagne where we talked about the Xbox outage, how the servers were down, and how I lost access to a bunch of my digital games. It seems that after that video in particular, people are very, very concerned that I don't know what the home Xbox function is. People in the comments like, this guy is dumb, he doesn't know how to make a Series X's home Xbox and avoid this whole issue. People are in Jimmy's comments saying the same thing, people are reaching out to me. And guys, I know what the home Xbox function is. This is a direct consequence of a conversation that I had with Jimmy. I was editing down that footage that me and Jimmy shot, and I was like, I just don't like my vibe that I'm bringing to this man. Jimmy's over there, he's cracking jokes, he's got this like cool, relaxed vibe, and I'm on the other end like, super uptight and very presentational. And he was like, man, you just gotta let go of that like presentational vibe. You gotta stop worrying about being gotcha'd in the comments, man. You just gotta be yourself. So I was like, yeah, you're right, man. So I started cutting out stuff that I thought was boring and I thought would make the video flow better. And one of those parts was me talking about how my home Xbox is my Series S. You gotta make sure that your Xbox, whatever you're trying to play on, is designated as your home Xbox. And that should solve all of this, but I didn't have that on my Series X because my other Xbox is my home Xbox for my wife, but I only paid for the game once. That's because I set my Series S as my home console, which gives any profile on that Xbox access to all of my profile privileges, like my digital game library and Game Pass subscription. It's something I've talked about in plenty of other videos before, so I was like, I don't need to rehash this, especially for people who come back to watch the channel, they already know. I had just talked about it in a video I posted maybe like 2-3 days before that, but I wanted to play on my Series X, which is behind me, that's the one connected to my TV. But even though in theory, yes, you could avoid losing access to your digital titles during an outage by setting your Xbox to your home Xbox, I couldn't set my Series X as my home Xbox during the outage because, well, they couldn't check in with the servers and make it happen. And then I saw this comment on the video I posted where I was talking about, oh, my Series S is my home Xbox, basically saying, hey, the home Xbox trick, it didn't work for me. I still had the same issues, even though it's supposed to magically fix everything. So while, yeah, setting your console to your home Xbox works for most people, it's not a universal fix. And that's ignoring the fact that I have 2 Xboxes, one of them all digital, my Series S, and if I want to, me and people in my household should be able to play those at the same time, not just my home Xbox. I'm not completely out on digital games just yet. I mean, it's kind of too late for that because a bunch of my games are digital, and it seems that Xbox, especially with their first-party stuff, is perfectly content to have no physical copies of their games. But last week, during that outage, I definitely saw the drawbacks of having a digital-only library. It's a complicated issue that hopefully Xbox keeps in mind going into next generation. My last PSA is about this controller, the Ultimate C wired controller for Xbox from 8-Bit Dough. 8-Bit Dough did send this to me along with a couple of other controllers, but just to be clear, this is not a hashtag ad or sponsored situation. About a year or so ago, they just started sending me stuff, but they never ask for anything. They never like try to offer me money to do a review or like ask for a review at all. They just send me their products, which is really cool because I'm a big fan of what they do. So shout out to 8-Bit Dough, y'all are cool. And so is this controller. Now, this was a controller that was not on my radar at all. And just by looking at it, it's just like a regular ass looking Xbox controller. Well, kind of. It's got that 8-Bit Dough shape if you are familiar with their other controllers like the Ultimate wired Xbox controller. But it doesn't even have the back advanced buttons like their other controllers. It's a very simple kind of thing, and it is wired. But last night I was playing Fallout 3 and I was just absolutely mesmerized, geeking out over these ring lights that are around the joysticks. When I first saw the box for this, I was like, big deal. Like, there are some lights around the joystick, who cares? There's a mode where you can just like change out the solid colors that they are, but there's also a mode where it senses where you are inputting directionally with the joysticks and changes the color accordingly. And I was just absolutely geeked out and mesmerized over this last night, messing around with it. I texted Jimmy about it. I texted my other friend about it. I was like, dude, look, the freaking lights change around the joysticks depending on the input. That's awesome. It's such a seemingly small, insignificant detail, and obviously it has no effect on the gameplay or my enjoyment of whatever game that I'm using the controller to play. But I was like, this is cool. I've never seen something like this before. I've never had a controller like this before. The joysticks in this controller are also Hall effect sensor sticks, which is something that's been on my radar for a while now, but I've never actually experienced them for myself. And I gotta say, Hall effect sensors in joysticks, big fan. It's just so smooth. It's hard to explain, put into words. I find there's a notable difference when it comes to the joystick snapping back to center as opposed to a regular Xbox controller. This is kind of a dumb test and example because it's not something that you would do in any actual game, or very, very few. But when I'm moving the joystick around in a circle like this on a standard Xbox controller, you could feel it scraping against the well. Whereas on this Ultimate C controller with the Hall effect sticks, it's completely smooth and frictionless. It's weird, but cool. And while this remains to be seen, I can't say for sure, but because there is virtually no friction in these joysticks, that makes them pretty much immune to stick drift. Overall, if you're cool with wired controllers, I would say this is another W on 8-Bit Doe's part, especially at its price point. It's only 35 bucks. Anyways, guys, that's all the Xbox stuff we have to talk about today. Thanks so much for joining me for another edition of Xbox Ready. If you've made it this far into the video, you like Xbox, you like my content, consider subscribing so you can stay up to date on all things going on in the world of Xbox. Thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you in the next video.